everybody. Welcome back to She Ventures Out, the podcast where we celebrate the courage it takes to leave your comfort zone and do the thing that is your life's calling. As always, I am Kiana Williams, your host, executive coach, author, and seasoned navigator of life's many transitions. And I am so excited for today's conversation. I'm going to tell you more about how I stumbled upon Grace as we get into the conversation. So just a little teaser about that. But I do want to introduce her. So, Grace is the founder and CEO of Paraclete Planning, which is a woman-led firm that brings strategy, heart, and soul to project management and event planning across the nonprofit, corporate, and government sectors. But like many of you, before she built this thriving business that y'all are all about to learn about, Grace was like many of us, deep in a full-time role, gifted, capable, and quietly wondering if there was more. And you're going to find out that she said yes to herself and yes to so much more. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Hey, Grace.
Hello, good morning.
So excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And because there's so much to talk about, I just want to jump right in.
Yeah.
So I had seen you all over LinkedIn, posting about the wonderful things that you were doing, the wonderful events that you were coordinating for people. And I think that I had, sent a LinkedIn connection, and that's kind of the thing that I do, right? I connect with people, like I like to build my network, but
Yeah.
at that point, we still didn't know one another.
Mhm.
And then fast forward, I got to actually see you in action. So I've talked about this retreat before on the podcast. I was at the African American Leadership Academy retreat, and
Yep.
your team produced the event. And the event was phenomenal. But
Thank you.
again, at that point in time, I still didn't know a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing that happened that said, oh, I need to see if Grace will come on the show was one of the speakers, and I'm not sure if it was Mo or if it was Bo, who was talking
Mhm.
about how you went through the academy like I did. Shout out to cycle 7. That's my cycle.
Yeah.
But you went through the academy, and
Mhm.
while you were in the academy, you were dreaming about Paraclete, right? I don't know if you had the name at that point in time, but you were dreaming about doing your own thing. And
Yes.
it sounded like, and I'll let you tell the story, but it sounded like you started like putting pen to paper throughout your experience there, came out
Yeah.
of the academy, and next thing we know, like you are an event planning maven
Yeah.
transforming the world.
I
So
like
tell the
that.
people the story.
Yes. So, yes, I was favorite 14, cohort 14, going through AALA, and the timing was just perfect. Because, the project is you, right? It's
Yes.
not whatever it is you're trying to do, it's actually you. And my revelation there, and I actually got paired with an entrepreneur, and I will shout him out, Marshall Shorts, as
Oh,
my
we love
accountability
Marshall.
partner.
Yes.
Yeah. So just, knowing he had stepped out, he's a business owner, and just hearing his insight, it was just all perfect timing. Realizing that I am who I am, no matter where I am, and just the value that I bring to really any team or situation, like that was fuel for me to say, you know what, I think I can take a chance on myself and see what this might look like. And, just learning more about myself and my leadership style through that program really did help to catapult my decision to step out.
So I
So.
love that. So had you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, or was there kind of a moment that kind of your spirit spoke to you and said, Grace, come forth?
That was actually exactly how that went, because I never in a million years thought I would be a business owner, entrepreneur. But I did start feeling a shift. So a lot of people know out there we have a million kids. So after our fourth child, just during my whole pregnancy, I'm like, I don't want to miss out again on, some of those early moments, and just being able to be there with my family was really starting to wear on me. And, I've always had amazing jobs, people in the different jobs I've had, but over time, it's just like, okay, I think I need to shift and really be more present at home.
Mm,
So it was definitely a month long process and decision when thinking about this. But it was absolutely something that God literally placed in my spirit and was like, "You're gonna do this," and
oh
I
my
said, "Sure
gosh.
about that." So, okay, we'll get into that struggle a little bit later.
Yeah. So just to be clear, so it was really this kind of pull to being more present for your family that really kind of sparked this. Is that what you're saying?
It was absolutely. And I don't know if it's because it was our girl, because we have three boys and this is our first girl. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But just again, missing, just always being on the go, always, go to work, come home, see your kids for 2 hours, and then you start all over again. So definitely it was a shift over time to where, I said, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing. So, what did it feel like, right, to leave the security of a full-time job to the degree that any full-time jobs, provide us security? But
Right.
yeah, but what did that feel like to truly, say I'm betting on myself?
It was scary, not gonna lie. And honestly, I think I've people may think I'm crazy. I actually decided to leave my job in the middle of the pandemic. It was actually it was my first decision was to go and do it was March of 2020. But then literally the next Monday, the world shut down. So I kind of
Wow.
pressed pause and said, maybe I should wait and just see what's about to happen here. But fast forward to August of 2020, I had a few clients just, part time at the time because I was still working full time. But that's when I really put pen to paper. So I founded the business in November of 2019, came back to work and then, worked through that full first quarter. But then once I said, I still felt that shift, it wasn't leaving me. So I said,
Mm.
okay, I'm going to do this. And the whole time I kept hearing God say, like, the jobs are not your source. I am your source. So
Girl, don't
I
be over here
said,
giving me
oh,
chills.
listen, I'm just like, wow. So, and I kept hearing that and hearing that, feeling that shift. So, I said, let me just do my due diligence, started doing research, putting everything on paper. I also went through another entrepreneurship program led by the WSBA. So, just kind of getting some of those fundamentals in place. So, a combination of all of those things gave me that confidence to go ahead and get started
I
full
love
time.
that. So I talked a little bit about it in the opening, but tell the folks exactly what Paraclete does. And I'd also love to understand like I researched what the name means, but if you could tell the folks what it means as well.
Yeah, so paraclete, it's a Greek term, founded it's a biblical term, and it means to come alongside, to aid, to assist, to advocate for. So, and I had come across that word years ago, so I never even it just came like literally just came to me when I was sitting down and planning all this out. So I was like, oh, that's what we do. I always felt like I have I guess you call it the gift of helps.
Mm,
Always, trying to lend a hand, support, hospitality ministry, all of that, all of those things. So I said, if I'm going to do this, I wanted it to feel like service for me personally. If we can come in and enhance the situation, we're going to do that. So, with our business doing corporate event planning, we come alongside our business partners to take their vision and just make it a reality. Because some places don't have a dedicated, events team or a comms person who can really take hold of these special events. So we like to say we're an extension of their team, and just to make sure again they get their event goals met. So.
yeah. I love kind of how you're talking about like all of these nudges that happen like throughout your life, right? And
Mhm.
it's that idea that sometimes we won't know why something is happening until a certain point, right? And so you stumbled across the word paraclete like earlier in life, right? Like
Mhm.
you were
Mhm.
part of the hospitality ministry, right? Like
Yep.
like all of these things.
Yep.
And, and we're going to get into kind of mindset and stuff like that. But all of these things just feel like gentle nudges, right, along your life's journey saying, you know, Grace, you're here for something different. Grace, you're here for something different. Is that how it feels now that you're in it?
Absolutely. And even just from like a networking standpoint, like, you know, I always felt that I had such random jobs over my career. And but when I look back at it, it's like, that's why I worked there, or that's why met this particular person, or that's why I was exposed to these concepts, because I literally go back and recall these things and said, that's the reason why.
Oh, yeah.
So it was all, I truly believe it was all a part of his plan. I mean, nothing is by accident.
Yes.
And so, yeah, every day, literally, I'm finding out like, okay, that's what, I think I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah, but I also think it's just a good message to our listeners, right? About paying attention, right? Paying attention to those things. And not that you'll always know all the answers at that moment, but just really paying attention and showing up. It sounds like, you just have a heart for showing up fully for people. And so as you do those things, right, like other things manifest out of that. So I love that. So, Grace, She Ventures Out is all about mindset, as much as it is about, kind of just venturing out. And so when you think about the kind of mindset that it took to, enable you to transition from employee to entrepreneur, what are those things that were required, and how has your mindset evolved over time?
Ooh, yeah. So it's still evolving. So we celebrated 5 years at the end of last year. So really just going into an understanding, like, it's sort of a holistic thing for me, an approach to where, I can build a business that can do things with the community. It can build up other women and men who are a part of our team. But just knowing I'm not just a contributor. I'm like the founder, the
Yes.
formulator, and I think I'm shifting. I'm definitely shifting from the mindset of I don't have to do everything myself.
Mhm.
And having that support and a good team is critical to our sustainability. So I'm really in that space now of expanding and growing, getting out of that employee mindset,
Mhm.
again, because I'm thinking like I'm the doer just by nature. So for me, it's still shifting for me as far as my mindset of getting out again, that out of that doer mode and that more oversight mode. So, but I'm excited because I can see my transformation still even right
Mhm.
now as a business owner, and I know I'm learning every day, every week, every month. So yes, I'm shifting into that
Well, and
mode.
one of the things that I know, right, in launching my own business, right, is that some of those things you just have to be intentional about it until you build the muscle, right? And so you talk
Yeah.
about, I'm the founder, right? Like I saw that moment where you were like, yeah, like I'm the
Yes.
founder, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes you do have to keep reminding yourself of that thing. So what are
Yeah.
those things that you are intentionally doing to help yourself shift?
That's good. So processes, we've
Mhm.
established our processes, standard operating procedures, making sure no matter who touches the work or the client, it's going to be the same quality support. Um, and I think for me, 'cause I don't mind it. I think that's the issue I'm dealing with myself. Like I love the day to day. I love working with clients face to face, but I don't have to anymore. So it's like, oh, this feels different. And I think again, it's trust. I've been delegating a whole lot more, and just empowering my team to do it because they can. They're phenomenal. So I'm like, why not? So yeah, so it's definitely keeping that consistent process in mind, no matter who we're working with.
Yeah. When I've talked to other entrepreneurs, one of the things that, we talk about is that regardless of the fact that this is the thing that you wanted to do, right? Regardless of the fact that this is the thing that you're passionate about, right? There's still from time to time is some fear, right? Some anxiousness that pops up when you're doing the work, especially when, to your point, right? You hadn't dreamed about being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have a roadmap. So how do you manage through that, right? Like, how do you get yourself in the right frame of mind to conquer that feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, it's, because I didn't really know going into it. I didn't have the dream of, yes, I'm going to be in business for 20 years and we're going to do these things. But now that we have some legs under the business, I can sit back and say, oh, okay, well, maybe it's time to do some of that strategy work, and just looking more long term. So I definitely want to expand. I want to put more staff in place, those kinds of things. So, and just really be able to, of course, benefit as an owner. You want to benefit from your business, but not feeling the pressure of having to be in the day to day is definitely our next shift right now. And so, I got into this because I want to be more present for my family. So, so being able to release it, and I feel great about it. I feel we're in that space now. We're moving into that space this year. So I'm really excited about that shift that's coming for us.
Well, and one of the things that I have found is as much as entrepreneurship is about the very thing that you talked about, right? Creating more time with your family, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that you're working less than you did when you were, working for somebody else, right? You're
That's right.
probably working more. You just have better control over your time to
That,
distort
yes,
it to your family, to those other things
that's
that
it.
matter to you.
That's definitely it. And I have a husband who's an entrepreneur too,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's definitely a dance for us with the family. But yeah, that's it. And it's like, again, going back to mindset, it's not that you're not working, is that you can make the work for you, or
Yeah.
your schedule work for you. You don't have to worry about having days off from work, to be able to take a vacation, or if your kids get sick, you don't have to worry about not being able to care for them. So I wouldn't trade that honestly
Yeah.
right now, because I'm like, I don't know how people do it just with kids. Like, I just don't know. So yeah, so having this freedom, is crucial for us right now.
Yeah. Well, what a powerful kind of legacy and role modeling you
Yeah.
all are giving to your kiddos by, them
Thank
seeing,
you.
mom and dad,
Mhm.
build thriving businesses. I love that for them.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
one of the things that I know for myself and, I've heard from other women is just this idea of perfection, right? I'm not going to put something out until it's perfect, or, I'm not going to launch until I know 10 different things are, locked in place. So, how
Mhm.
did you get to a place of understanding kind of what needed to be perfect and then what things needed to be good enough, right? So that you could
Yeah.
launch?
Yeah, so yeah, everything will never ever be perfect, so know that. But I think that comes with laying that kind of foundation, knowing, like, at least set your values, your priorities, your products or your services, and stick with that. Being true to, like, what your service expertise is, or your product expertise is. Because yeah, things are going to change, things are going to flow. Some things might work this month and maybe not 3 months from now. So you definitely need to shift, when necessary. But yeah, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm nailing it, I have it all together. Like, I'm still like, I think this is good. But you figure out, what works. You establish your system. I have so many support, like, women who support me and have guided me in those early years, just giving me that, I guess, encouragement to say, you got it. Like, just step out. It's that courage piece and getting over that fear. I know for me, it was preventing me and earlier on to just do it. But something simple, someone shared with me, actually, Lauren Edwards, shout out to Lauren Edwards. She just simply said, start it, and if it doesn't work, change something or tweak. You
Mhm.
have to be willing to shift and tweak until you get to the place that, that's going to work for you.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I read something where someone said something similar. They were like, "Don't be afraid to disrupt the whole thing," right? Like
Yeah.
if the thing you started out with isn't the thing that it needs to be, or the thing that
Mhm.
you're on now, don't be afraid to
Mhm.
disrupt it.
Yeah.
Another thing that you said that I love, and kind of in our pre-conversation, you had touched on this too, right? Is the support that you found from other women, other entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We talked about you having space at Zora's house. You talked about
Mhm.
going through another entrepreneurial program. So the other thing
Yeah.
that it sounds like, Grace, is that you've been really kind of diligent about taking advantage of the resources. So, talk a little bit
Mhm.
about kind of how that has helped you in growing your business.
Yes, I'm always of the mindset of I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I know there's value and in just learning from other people. And I always like to give love to folks. Tana Batiste has been a huge help. Dawn Tyler Lee has been a huge help. Keena Smith, like there's so many women again. Elsie Johnson, like here at Zora's house, having this safe space for women of color has been just exactly what I needed right now. But yeah, like their expertise is amazing, and if I can get nuggets to build, this business, I'm gonna take advantage of it because again, I'm
Yes.
like none of us can do this alone. So I'm always like, if there's any way to learn and improve, I'm all about it.
For sure. And you talked about how, you were kind of working from home. Elsie
Mhm.
suggested that potentially get space at Zora's house. And how has actually having an office space to go to, how has that not only transformed the business, but maybe transformed how you think about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so we work I used to work out of my home in Pickerington, so that's a bit of a drive if you have Columbus clients. So, it was just the point where I said I don't want to have to go all the way back home or try to find a coffee shop, which is fine, or a library to post up at. It was just, I just wanted to have that space to call our own. And again, to contribute to the vibrancy here at the New Zora's house. And, as we expand our team, having a place to headquarter the company, I think was really important for this next phase that we're going into.
Yeah. So for our listeners who are not Columbus Bay, Zora's House
Mhm.
is a co-working space for women of color
Mhm.
that, just is phenomenal. Also another phenomenal, Black woman founder, Elsie Johnson. And then you touched on a number of programs. So, I know Keena Smith runs a program, that is focused on entrepreneurs. I'm not familiar. Dawn has her own business, of course. I'm familiar with Dawn and her consulting and coaching business. But then you mentioned some other people who I'm not necessarily familiar with, but are clearly, doing things in this space. And
Yeah.
what I love about all of that is just an ecosystem, right, of people who are, supporting and enabling people to grow, to develop, to mentor, like
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I'll highlight Tana Batiste actually doing work with Zora's House as well. She has a consulting firm called Drew Alexander Consulting, but she was also a friend, I mean, for
Mm.
years and years. So that was sort of how it started. So yeah, on different fronts, she's been a huge support for us early on. And even still, she's an advocate for us. So
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So Grace, your work spans sectors, right? So you do things for, folks from nonprofits to government to corporate. So talk a little bit about, I want to, kind of get into brass tacks. Like, how did you start cultivating clients? How did you start to get people in such a range of spaces?
yeah, so I have a lot of experience in nonprofits, just having worked with United Way and things, and then shifting to the government arena, doing work in Mayor Ginther's office. Those two segments really they kind of energized me, right? Like just even before I worked for United Way, I worked for corporate entity, Time Warner Cable. And shifting from that corporate environment to nonprofit, I was like, yeah, this is where I'm thriving. So being able to work in each sector had equipment, you just have those little nuances that you pick up on and you understand about, say, government and certain regulations that you need to stick within. Nonprofit, you have to get creative sometimes with some of the budget constraints. But even with corporate, you may have different levels of approval processes that you need to go through. So each one, I've been able to see the internal workings of each sector. So we're able to at least bring that lens into our planning process to say, well, have you considered this? Or, we'll need to get permitting for that. Or, so just certain rules and things that we need to follow based on, the sector that we're working in.
Yeah, so it's really you kind of gleaning that past expertise, right? And positioning that expertise, that authority that you have to say, I know kind of the nuances of what it means to do an event in this space, or I know the nuances. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's 5 years, right? You just hit your 5 year anniversary.
Yep.
So I imagine, congratulations again. But I imagine having a business that's had that longevity because if people don't know, like 5 years is a significant milestone for entrepreneurs. Like, do the research, folks. Google if you don't believe me, because like most businesses, right, like shut their doors much sooner than that. So the fact that you have had that longevity means something. But I also think that it probably enables you to be able to pick the projects that you work on as well.
Yeah.
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 So talk a little bit about how your values drive the types of projects that you say yes to and the ones you say no to.
That's a great question. So yeah, so it has been a struggle because again, I'm always prone to say, yes, I can help, we can help, we can help. And I want to be able to serve everyone. But yeah, we do have to take a hard look at that. And typically, so I don't know if this is cliche, but I am really big on, vibes and energy and just feeling of the situation. I'm big on understanding if I have peace about a situation, even in business, like I try not to ignore that. So I am able to at least, when an opportunity comes, to say, okay, how does this feel? Is it, something that fits our, expertise one? Because, we've had projects where it's just a little bit outside of our expertise. So I have to say, well, it doesn't really fit with what we're offering, but I have referrals for, say, a wedding or something that's social that people just think we can do, which we could, but, we have to stick with our niche. So yeah, so I am big on, again, vibes, connection. And we are big on, just inclusion, empathy, involving the whole team in the process. So we don't come in to say this is how you should do it. We're like, let's hear what you're trying to do. We offer our guidance, of course, and and offer some best practices if needed. So yeah, so we are able to. I sort of look at it as a whole with our whole year, with the timing and capacity, of course, and determine again whether or not we're able to support.
Yeah. So you talked about kind of this idea of being able to control your time, so on and so forth. But I
Hmm.
also imagine that, in being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of joy, right? Because you are creating this work, right? Like this is your a baby, right? In a sense, and everything has your fingerprints on it. But is there a moment or an experience where you sat back and said, I cannot believe this is my life? Like this, like I'm feeling so much joy in what I'm doing. Have you had one of those
Yes.
moments?
Yes, I honestly have. Because when you're in it, you're like, okay, I'm doing it, but I think it's when you hear other people sort of say like, oh, I've seen you here and I've done, seen this, and you're really, it's like, oh, I guess we are, are really making a difference out here. So yeah, like I guess just the fact that God is continuing to provide. Like I have
Mm,
never worried. I mean, sure, we have those moments where we're like, I don't know what this next couple months is going to look like, but still, I still had that peace. Like, you told me to do this, so I'm gonna trust you to, make this
yes.
happen for us. But yeah, like I think again, just overall looking at it and realizing like, wow, we're still doing this. Because there have been times where I'm like, okay, I can do that now. And this is a little bit more than, some weeks are like that. But I think just getting through those little moments and just grounding myself in the fact that I know I'm going down the path I need to be going on.
Yeah.
So it is surreal. It still is surreal for us.
Well,
Yeah.
and so, with the highs, right? Sometimes there's lows. So, what's the hardest lesson that you've had to learn on this journey?
Ooh, I would say still, as much as I want to be super mom and everything, like I still feel like I can't do everything I want to do right now as it relates to my family. I think I had that hard realization maybe last summer when I'm thinking like, oh, summer's here, the kids are home, we can do all these things, or I can be, here. But I couldn't last summer. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I think that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I need to shift even more out of the day to day because I have my oldest is about to be a teenager. So I'm like, where
Oh,
is this time going? And my daughter's 5, so that that span of age, I feel like is so important for us to be there, even if it's just going on a picnic or a walk, like little things. It doesn't have to be big. But I think I had these higher expectations of myself as a mom to say, yeah, I'm going to be, super mom and doing all these crafts. I love doing crafts. My kids think I'm crazy sometimes, like, Mom, I don't want to do a craft. I'm like, but I do. So, again, just taking advantage. So when they're at this age, I do still really want to put more time into them right now. So just trying to
yeah.
balance that out.
Well, and like you said earlier, right? Everything is balanced. I remember, when my kiddos were the age that yours are, and shout out to having adult children, though I will tell
Ooh,
anyone that
that's
that is not that is not an
yeah,
easy journey either.
yeah, new problems, different problems.
Exactly, exactly. But I was telling someone the other day that, I was, leaving work, running to track meets, running to
Mhm.
lacrosse meets, right? And then we get home and I'd have to fix dinner and then they'd,
Yeah,
go to bed at night and then I'd have to log back into, the laptop.
yeah.
And it feels very similar now. I was downstairs working on a project for a client the other day, and, my son came, downstairs and, he wanted to talk. And, I was
Yeah,
like, okay, well, I'm going to have to put this to the side, right? Because
yeah,
when the
yeah,
adult children, especially the boys, want to talk to you, you got to
yeah.
take that time.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's so hard to pull
Yes.
that out of them sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah.
some of what you're talking about is about these kind of sacrifices, right? Like these sacrifices that we just have to get comfortable with making. So, what are the things that you have let go of,
Mm.
right, in this journey in order to make room for your whole dream?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think for me, I've never been like a control freak or anything
Mm.
like that.
Oh, girl, good for you. I'm still
Yeah,
working
that's
through
like,
it.
we can't, because my whole thing is, and I share with my team all the time, it's like it's not about what I would do or how I would do it. Like the standard of the business, so I trust whatever I said as long as it makes sense for the client, as long as we're not breaking any rules or laws. Like you can put your twist on it. So I'm all about like letting people do what they know how to do. So I think for me, again, it's just kind of not making it seem like, oh, it has to be done my way,
Mm.
because it doesn't. But, just being able to release that, I think has helped me a whole lot.
I
Yeah.
think that's powerful, Grace. I think that's powerful as a self-described control freak,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I probably was like jumping a little bit when you said, like, girl, you did
Yeah.
what?
I
No,
know, I
but for
know.
real,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Because,
And that's
even
something,
when I was like leading in HR, right? Like, I
yeah.
knew the only way that we're going to be successful is if you empower teams. So I love that for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are moments where I'm like, okay, we need to do some correction right there in the moment. Like,
Hmm.
oh, let's do this instead, or. But yeah, I have some that you just have to let it go.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's powerful. So, the other thing that I know is important kind of in this journey is discipline, right? So, and
Mhm.
probably more so than, when you were internal to an organization. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
how have you built discipline into your day,
Mm.
to be successful?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely boundaries, time boundaries.
Mhm.
It's so easy, and I have done it, worked up until 6, 8, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes later. But it's being able to just shut down, at a decent time, 5 or 6 o'clock every day, and just setting that expectation for our clients. If I get an email, I'm not going to respond till 8 a.m., the
Mhm.
next day. And I think that's worked. And it's mostly for me, it's still, again, maintaining that balance at home, not letting it always take over when I'm supposed to be present for my husband and my kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's hard. Like sometimes I'm like, let me just check this email real quick, or let me, I'm texting my phone, responding to emails, and my husband look at me like, we're supposed to be. So, but again, he does it too. But so yeah, just remembering that, and to being intentional about setting that travel time and unplugging. You know, some businesses will say you got to take your vacation. Well, we
Mhm.
don't have anyone to tell us that right now.
Right.
So we just have to make it happen and make sure we continue to maintain that balance.
Yeah. And how are you infusing that into the culture of your organization, right? So,
Mm,
I love, the empowerment that you're giving your employees to,
mhm.
make decisions in partnership with the
Yeah.
clients. But what else are you doing to kind of create that within the culture of your business?
Yeah, and I encouraged them. I said, if you see a message from me, it's either I had to send it real quick because I was thinking about it, but do not respond to me until
Mhm.
after. And I don't expect them to work after hours, although some of them do. But they know, like, we need to shut it down. These are our office hours. Clients know they're not going to hear from us if it's not, during the business hours. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, getting to the milestone of actually having employees, so moving beyond being a solopreneur, right, to
mhm,
having,
mhm,
to really being a brand, being
mhm.
responsible, for people and a team, all of those things. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a significant milestone. So talk
yeah.
about what it took to get there. Like
Mm.
when did you first have your first employee?
Well, and actually, we are making our first hire next
Oh,
month.
wow.
So, up until this point, we've had some dedicated 1099 contractors. So, there's 3 on my team right now, and then yeah, we're finally at the position where we're gonna be able to hire someone next this month, or
Cue
yeah, coming up.
applause.
It's like I'm still sort of nervous about it, but again, it's like we're here. This is the next level. So yeah, I'm excited.
But kind of what is that moment? Like, what happened where
Hmm.
you said, okay, I feel like for us to get to where I want us to get to, right? We are
Yeah,
now at that place.
yeah, it was definitely the client load.
Mm,
Seeing, we have a wonderful percentage, I guess, of repeat clients versus new clients. And once I saw that, like, you do your numbers at the end of the year and you're like, oh, okay, okay. And just realizing, like, wow. And so, but then that feeling of, again, I still have those moments where I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to take on any clients because it's too much for me. I'm like, but wait, no, it's not just me,
yeah.
Grace. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring someone in full time to, share the load and all of those things, and eventually hire more and more of those managers to be able to have an equal distribution of clients per each person.
Yeah, that's
So,
wonderful. So
yeah.
you've received recognition, about being a mover and a shaker.
Mhm.
So what would you attribute that visibility, that success that you've had to?
Hmm. I would probably say my network, truly, just simply the people I've come across in my different roles, and even like at events, like, you saw me at the AALA, like I'd be at an event, they said, "Is this you?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was okay. And then, or like when I meet someone, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know you did this event here and there." So I think that is critical again to it has been critical to our success. You never know who's watching, you never know
Mhm.
who notices. So we do always try to maintain again that level of professionalism and just again service. I'm truly feel like I'm a servant leader in this whole thing, and I just want to make sure we're adding value anywhere we go. So yeah, it's been our network for us.
And the other thing is, we talked about event planning, but I mean, your work is deeply rooted in things like empathy and justice and inclusion. And so, how do you kind of weave those ideas into the details, right? Like, how does that come alive in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so we are really heavy on listening.
Mm,
We'll have they call it the discovery session, or those early meetings where you're like, okay, let's really get a sense of what you're trying to accomplish here. So I just believe having everyone invested in the process early on, and just that idea of being heard, and again, at least heard, right? Like we're hearing everything, we're taking it all in, and sort of synthesizing it to bring out this outcome. So even like little things like accessibility,
mm,
from like a disability standpoint, like we have to think about, okay, so if these have stairs, let's make sure we have a way, if someone's in a wheelchair, or maybe it's hearing impaired, like making sure there's an interpreter. So just certain little things we try to insert into the process. But again, just making sure the client knows we do hear them,
mm.
and when we're proposing like certain, whether it's decor or just maybe it's entertainment, we can remember and recall the conversations and be able to recommend some things for them for the event.
Yeah. Well, it also sounds like that also like you and your team have this lens for justice, empathy, inclusion, right? That even if your client isn't thinking about these things, right?
Mhm.
Because they're, focused on 10 million other things,
Yeah.
right? You're
Hmm.
thinking about those. So somebody will come to
Hmm.
you and say, I want to do this big massive event. And in your
Hmm.
mind, you're saying, okay, well, let me think through how I can pull off this big massive event, but how I can
Hmm.
do it in a way that ensures that inclusion, accessibility, all of those
Yeah.
things come through.
Yeah. And perception too. Perception is reality, right?
Yeah.
For whoever's perceiving it. And so, again, if we try to understand too the goals of the not just the goals of the company or the organization, but their values. Like, if they do value equity and inclusion like we do, it's like, okay, well, the presentation panel has to reflect that, or your marketing has to reflect that. So yeah, we do try to make sure that's clear throughout the whole process.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So, Grace, if little Grace was looking at you right now, like what would she be most proud of?
Oh man, probably breaking out of my shell.
Mm,
I've always been that shy, awkward girl growing up. And even like I would say even being able to speak on stages or just run a business in general. Like I never thought I'd be in this position. So I think she would be proud of the fact that I did step out, and I still do it scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm
mhm,
terrified most
mhm.
times, in certain situations, but I always remember, they're not inside my body, so they see me, so they're not feeling what I'm feeling right now. So just trying to be able to maintain that composure, I think she would be proud of.
We know she would be. And to that point about kind of doing it afraid, what would you say to someone else, right, who has the vision, who's written it down, like you talked about, but who hasn't yet taken that step? What advice?
Whew, just do it. Just do it. Because if you never do it, you'll never know if you can, or you'll never know where it could take you. Because I feel like, again, we hold on to these ideas, these amazing ideas, and again, just knowing everything's not going to be an ideal situation, you're just going to have to move forward with that confidence that what you research and put together is solid. Because if you have that confidence in what you're offering, it's going to make room for you. The opportunities will come. Again, you have to just make sure you're presenting that yourself professionally, that you know your stuff, you have things in order, and just see where it takes you.
Yes. Well, and I know that a lot of times, the thing that people, get worried about is this whole idea is, if I build it, will they come? Right. And so,
Yeah.
and you talked about, networking. Are there other tips that you would give to people to kind of, connect with people, to build business, to actually get clients?
Yeah, so I found that, I guess my approach would be, even with networking in particular, and knowing that you meet people for a reason. Like, there's always something. It's all connected, right? I think one of my Clifton strengths is connectedness, or something like that, because I truly, again, believe that nothing is coincidence, right? Like, when you're networking, be intentional about, like, okay, stating what it is you do. But even if it's not, and people have heard these about networking events all the time, even if that person is not a direct fit, they
Mhm.
may know someone. So, and not being afraid to say, well, if you know anyone who could use our services, please, I'd love to meet them, or whatever. And I think, oh, another shout out, Tony Bell. I went through this, I'm always going through programs, right? I went through Project Diversity back when I was at United Way, and she would, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but it says it's not just who you know, it's who you know and what they know about you,
Mm,
because they might have met you, like, oh yeah, I do know someone who does event planning. Let me connect you. So, and I think too, it's about showing up authentically, and not being, trying to be someone you're not, or just trying to portray that something that you're not really
yeah.
confident in. So yeah, I think just showing up as your authentic self, and just being open and intentional about different connections.
Yeah. So, Grace, on the other side of the leap, what does venturing out mean to you now?
Ooh, I'm out here. I am out here, because and there's still some days I'm like, wow, am I really doing this? You have those
Mm,
moments. I guess for me is like I'm still in it. Like, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
mm,
And knowing that, again, even this could be temporary. Who knows what this is going to be 15 years from now, or if we're going to sell, or if we're going to be in 10 cities, I think for me, it's like, I did it, and I'm happy. Like, I don't want to say happy, but I'm, I guess, confident in
yes.
that this was the right move for me.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. That is powerful because I mean, I think that there are people in various stages of their lives who don't feel like they can say that, right?
Mhm.
Who, are in, corporate jobs or, even people who've launched, right? Who aren't getting that level of fulfillment. And I
Mhm.
think that whatever we're doing, right, it's the whole reason why I created the podcast, right? It's the whole
Mhm.
reason why I decided to launch my coaching practice is
Mhm.
because I believe that we are, we're meant for that, right? Like we are made to, find joy, to find, happiness, confidence, all the words that you were saying in the thing that we're doing. And if we don't have those things, right, then
Mhm.
we really should be trying to figure out how do we get to the thing that's going to allow us to feel that way.
That is so good. Yeah, because we're all put here with a purpose,
Exactly.
and that we can't always do that in the confines of a position, you know.
Exactly.
So this definitely
Exactly.
gives you more leeway to find that.
Exactly. Okay, Grace, before we get you out of here, how
Okay.
can folks find you? If they want to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, and I will say I'm old. I don't have an Instagram yet. I know that's crazy, but maybe I'll get one if I get an intern. But LinkedIn, it's just under my name, Grace Hunter, or Facebook, it's under Paraclete Planning, and our website, paraclete-planning.com. So,
Awesome. Well, Grace,
yeah,
this has been wonderful. It has
thank
been everything that
you.
I thought was going to be. Congrats, congrats, congrats on your continued success. I'm going to
Thank,
continue to watch your growth and be inspired.
thank you.
And I hope all of y'all were just as inspired as I was. Please continue to follow She Ventures Out. Feel free to leave us a comment, give us a like. And as always, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or y'all, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep venturing out. Bye.
Boxland Media. Think big.